Hello everyone. Today I thought I'd take the time to give you a thorough demonstration of the UnleashX dashboard for modified original Xboxes. Not only is this the dash I prefer to use, but I also believe all around it is the best and most capable dash for an original Xbox that's been modified. So, without any further waste of time, let's boot up the Xbox and go over it. The video capture has begun. The device takes a little time to go. This is the normal Xbox boot cycle. And at this point, instead of MS Dash, it's loading up the UnleashX Dash executable. That was a custom icon or graphic that I had made for myself for the Xbox because it's customizable, so why not? And here we have the stock UnleashX Dash at version 39.0528 alpha. There's one major bug in this, but everything else seems pretty good. First option, Launch DVD, does just that. It runs whatever optical disc is inside of the DVD drive. The Games option will allow you to launch any game that's been installed to the hard drive. The software UnleashX does come with its own game ripper, so if you have the actual discs and you put them in, you can rip them and not have to worry about putting in the disc every single time. The Start button will show a select/play menu, launch an NTSC or PAL mode if need be, information, recent games lists, and you can open the folder containing the data for the game with the File Explorer. So that's pretty useful. Nice to have little shortcuts. The Applications menu is where you'd have any other applications that you will install onto the Xbox, such as Xbox Media Center, an Atari emulator, anything you might find. There's tons and tons of software available for the original Xbox, so you go around, you find something nice, throw it in the applications folder and try it out. System is where the bulk of the options and customization options are in the system. We go into settings. We have the auto launch settings for auto launching games, DVDs, and selecting what software you'd use for your CD and DVD player, and more access to the file manager, the Xbox browser. Date and time, we actually have the clock settings, which are pretty straightforward. Set the time however you see fit. A funny thing is this time is actually incorrect. It's an hour behind because we're about to go through a time change, but where I live in the US, we do things about a week later than other areas do now. It's really weird, and the Xbox jumped ahead, so whatever. I have it set to 24-hour time anyway because why not, so it really doesn't matter. We have 24-hour clock format, the auto set clock option, which up until this version didn't work for me. This is the first version to have the correct time server that actually auto sets, so as I mentioned in the video where I removed the clock capacitor from this Xbox, it was a really nice thing that it worked because I don't have to manually set the time during power failure if I move the system anymore. Pretty awesome. But otherwise, all that does is handle the system clock. It's mildly important. Next, we have gamepad/infrared shortcuts, which allows you to set shortcut programs to where, let's say I hit the white or black button, I could automatically load up a particular game or a particular app. In this case, with the Xbox remote, which I do have the dongle and the Xbox remote, pressing the 0 button on the remote is set to load from the apps folder, Xbox Media Center. So it's pretty convenient because the button stands out, so if I just want to watch a movie or watch some, a TV show or something that I have saved to the Xbox hard drive, I just hit the 0 button when I grab the remote, run XBMC, and navigate to it. Live update is an incredibly boring option that actually never worked for me. All it does is automatically check for new versions of XBMC and download them. At least it should, but as I said, I've never gotten it to work. The network option just contains the network settings for your Xbox and the FTP server. No big deal. Usually these options can be left alone unless you have custom routing that you want to do. Screen calibration is where you calibrate the screen. Now this is interesting because the video that you'll see on YouTube, it looks like there's a lot of empty space that isn't used. The screen is actually calibrated perfectly to the TV I'm using, at least as far as a CRT will allow. So the area you see that's thick blue on the bottom and the left on the video capture is actually overscan area. So you see I have a width of 579 by a height of 441. So it's not near 640, 480, but it works and it fits just right on the TV screen. Sound and audio is a very convoluted mess of options that basically boil down to if you want custom music playing when the Xbox starts, you can go ahead. You can set up the surround sound for Dolby 5.1. Change whatever sound effects particularly happen, which all of these are from the stock MS Dash, so it still sounds like an Xbox that's been left running. We head to storage, and here you have the options to enable drives F and G on your hard drive. This, of course, is a custom hard drive install, much larger than the 8 or 10 gig that would normally be in a stock Xbox. And it does give you smart statistics on your hard drive. This being a new hard drive that was a donation from some friends, a 320 gigabyte IDE drive. It's really nice to be able to monitor the hard drive as I use it. It only has maybe 1 to 200 power cycles on it, and those are all from me actually using the hard disks. That's pretty cool. I don't know what this media check option does on the DVD drive info. But otherwise there isn't much to say. And yes, for those of you who know about the Xbox scene, this Xbox still has a Thompson optical drive in it. It's only given me trouble once when it actually just completely failed on me. Like, it just refused to work. The Xbox literally didn't boot for about 2 days, and I left it alone and it started booting just fine. Don't know what was up with that, but let's go on. Down here we have the system options, which gives detailed info on the actual Xbox Dash. The Xbox info in and of itself for, you know, region 1 North America and TSCM video stereo output, the hard disk key, which unless you can memorize this key, that's the reason that whenever you modify an Xbox, the first thing you do is back up your EEPROM. So you have that hard drive key, you back that up and you store it on your computer somewhere, because otherwise you will never be able to get another hard drive to work on that Xbox without TSOP flashing it or installing some form of custom mod chip and custom BIOS. There's the stock Xbox kernel version and what devices are plugged into the various ports. You see I have the gamepad, the controller I'm using, plugged into port 1, and on port 4 of the Xbox is the infrared dongle for the remote. Down here at storage, it tells you, like the storage menu did, the space available on the hard disk and its partitions, your basic network information, FTP statistics, temperature settings, and for those of you, again, who are familiar with the Xbox modding scene, these are temperatures with the stock version 1.0, you know, manufactured in October 2001, heat sink and fan combination, so about 40 and 44 degrees, so it's actually pretty nice. Other detailed information on UnleashX in and of itself, the thread usage of the software, I guess, and the RAM available, and the video buffer. The Xbox name, which of course I've named Zadara. File operations handles things such as disk copying primarily and some file movement issues. Most of the time the only file operations is copying disk data directly to the hard disk itself. Have things like auto rename, auto patch the Xbox executable, abort on error, then context menus of allowing uninstalls and other modifications to the software itself. The font scaling, scroll speeds, temperature information, the fan speeds of the Xbox, leaving it at 1.0x keeps it automatic. You can set it higher or lower, but the fan speed is still a little funny in customization. The LED colors, you can adjust those at will. Default is green, but toggling this option actually changes what the LED ring on the front of the system does. I mean, orange red, it'll flash orange red forever as the default. I usually just leave it on green. Screensaver, it'll go to orange. If you leave the dash setting for long enough, the screen will start to blank, and in my case the word Zadara will bounce around the screen. It's convenient. During file copy operations I have it glow red. During any FTP operations I have it flash orange and red, and if the system is just dedicatedly busy for whatever purpose I have it show as red as well. Screensaver wait is 60 seconds. The type, you can have video files, a slideshow of pictures, or text. In this case, like I said, I have the text Zadara. You can have a video file. I've tested the video file by having it load the intro movie from one of the Guilty Gear games. That was pretty cool, but it served no purpose, and it really wouldn't save the screen, so I just prefer to have the bouncing Zadara text. The skins option, you actually have the various skins available on the Xbox, and the path to other skins, themes, what have you. They're nice, but virtually all the skins available realistically are just of half-naked women, and it's cool if I was like 15, but I'm way past that point in my life. RSS new feed. The RSS news feed, allows you to set up an RSS news feed, so you could have a particular website that you like to get information from, such as Xbox Scene or what have you, to display across the bottom left corner of the screen, or bottom right, and other themes would have it customized, but in this theme that would be where it'd be located. Pretty useless option to me, so I'll leave it off. And video display, you can actually toggle the options available. Video standards of PAL, NTSC-M, or NTSC-J. Various formats, widescreen and normal, enabling 480p, 720p, and 1080i depending on the connector set you've got. Enable PAL 60, so 60 frame a second PAL format. Faster screen refresh rates, texture compression. Don't quite know exactly what texture compression does, but I leave it off because I'd rather the system stay relatively stock when actually gaming, if it even affects gaming. I'm not 100%. 32-bit or 16-bit texture and color depth, whether to soften or not. You may not be able to see the slight change when I toggle that option, and filter levels, where it filters the actual video feed. You can definitely see the difference between options 0, 1, and 2. Video mode auto switch, I don't toggle these options as I don't totally know what they do, and considering they list themselves as EEPROM safe, I don't even want to risk damaging the console with such. I am certain that you can brick the console to a degree with various video options where you won't have a video output to do anything with. I know boot disks such as Hexen will allow you to fix such, but I'd rather not risk that. Do not want to save changes, and that actually handles the control panel in the settings menu. Game Saves Manager lets you manage the game saves on the system. Now here is where the most critical bug is. If we go to a game such as, any of these games, you can see the DLC for Counter-Strike on the right, you can see the DLC for Crimson Skies over here. If I move over to the DLC, for some reason, the dash resets. This doesn't happen with the same data in the MS Dash. It seems to be, and it didn't happen with the older versions, it seems to explicitly be a flaw with this version of UnleashX, but it's something I can live with because the Game Save Manager handles, I would usually use it to handle the bulk data, deleting this or deleting these individual saves. If I really wanted to delete the DLC for whatever reason, I would just go and actually delete it manually through the MS Dash, so no big deal. And this data is, of course, saved to the TData and UData folders on the E drive, so the data still lives in its normal location. Text editor is literally a text editor. It is one of the most boring things imaginable. If I type in hello, there, I've told everyone hello. It is extremely boring. Do I want to save the changes? No. The text editor is very useful, though, if you wish to delete options or customize options in the UnleashX config file and other configuration files on the software, or excuse me, on the Xbox. You can delete them manually since they're usually just XML formatted things, and change what you need to change where necessary. Skins, these are the default that come with UnleashX. At least the particular Endure-based installer by King Roach that I used to do the initial mod and subsequent alterations. I prefer the Blue Shapes theme by Cthulhu because I like the color blue and it's fitting. Green Shapes, however, is a little bit more fitting for an Xbox considering the green theme of it, but these are all basically the same theme. No Images is a very thin, stock, wireframe-ish, pretty much exclusively theme, so a little light on the RAM usage. No images blue is the same. No images green, again, very similar. Orange shapes is an orange/red colored version of the same shapes theme. Purple shapes equally. You know, you get the idea. They're all about the same. Red shapes is usually the default, and red is a little bit too vibrant and aggressive to me, so I just leave it at blue. Miscellaneous options are to stop the FTP server, start the FTP server, reset the FTP server. If you look down on the second option from the bottom under D empty IP address, if I restart network, it should, there it goes, it resets the actual network process is what I'd like to call it. I was going to say network server, but network processes. Close and open DVD tray, do exactly what you think they would. Open DVD tray, opens the optical drive, and close DVD tray. You'll see D says open. It closes the optical drive, which initializes and then does nothing because there's no disk in there. Copy game disk does exactly what you think it would do. It straight copies the game disk to the hard drive, to one of the games folders, and is very, very convenient when you own actual disks. If you choose to get your disk data through other sources, there are other ways to move it. You could also burn a disk and copy it, but we're not going to discuss that here. I don't officially condone any options, but I also have no control over what anyone else does or doesn't do, so take that for what you will. And the format menu is a menu you simply do not go into, because you should never need to, but if you put in the password, which is usually capital XBOX, where'd X go? There's X. Forgot the alphabet for a minute. You can format all the drives, which usually proves useful in some cases on the X, Y, and Z drives if you've done some kind of modification to the game, such as Doom 3 and the shortened boot sequence where it doesn't play the intro movie, so instead of taking about 2 minutes to get to the game, it only takes about 30 seconds. You may need to delete the data in the X, Y, or Z drive where the game uses, or the Xbox uses those partitions as temporary storage. That way the modification actually works. Otherwise, again, you would never format your C or E options or any of that, because that will probably brick the Xbox and you'll need to open it up or find some way to reinstall the soft mod. The console would still work, but you're not going to be doing this on it. File Explorer is just that. You get a two-paned File Explorer, so we're browsing through the files right here for the actual Xbox Dash, and over here I can be looking through the games folder. Let's say Burnout 3. Yeah, look at those files. And you can actually view the XMV of based videos for any on any game that takes advantage of them. Wave and other audio files will play just fine. Then you use the left and right triggers to go through the various sound effects or what have you. And I've actually just triggered the memory controller selection option or audio file to play repeatedly. I'll just turn that off. That would get annoying very quickly. But otherwise, it's nothing too major. I mean, it's a file browser. It's nothing special. Here's an example of what I was talking about with the temporary folders. On the Y drive, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas puts a GTA 3.image file where it stores the bulk of the data that it deems necessary to quick load from. And the game loads quicker when you have that file present, but when you play another game that might make use of the Y drive, it'll oftentimes format that. The Z drive has its own config and data hanging out here. I don't even know what game that was, and the X drive has nothing on it right now. So again, just an example of stuff, and you'll see in the bottom right down there where the audio player still has loaded that particular little audio file, which would play forever. This option right here is MS Dashboard, which is exactly what it sounds like. It loads up the supposed to be the stock MS Dashboard, but my modification is slightly messed up, so I'm still able to boot back into the UnleashX Dash with the shortcut. But this is the normal later Dash with Xbox Live. 5960, I believe, is the ID. But otherwise, we do have the same access to everything as before. And as I was mentioning, the save bug on DLC does not happen here, so it's not a problem with my DLC. It's explicitly a problem with the UnleashX dashboard. So if I wanted to delete it, I could here. Music still functions, although currently I have no soundtracks ripped to this Xbox. Xbox Live still does exactly what it has done since April 15th of 2010, absolutely nothing, and the settings options are still what they are. The clock, as you can see, is set to the particular time zone where necessary, and is 1 hour off still, so daylight savings time being no. Well, that's an auto toggle, so this Xbox is of course manufactured before they did the change to when the time change occurs, so the clock is just going to be off for a week. It's not really a big deal. But otherwise, I mean, it's the same MS dashboard it's always been, but if you hold down the left and right trigger, select start and back on the Xbox controller, you reboot back into UnleashX, which is, again, pretty darn convenient to have. So you can use the MS Dash for CD operations and certain memory operations, which is why I keep the MS Dash around. With Xbox Live for the original Xbox being shut down, there is no realistic reason that anyone needs MS Dash, but it is very convenient. The last options are, of course, reboot to reboot the UnleashX Dash, and then the shutdown option. So if we click reboot, you'll see the Xbox goes with its static Xbox logo. It's currently going through the process of a warm boot, where it was checking for an optical disc of any kind, and then otherwise it goes to, again, boot UnleashX as normal. Lastly, as an example, you'll see that I am not touching anything. I'm not on any menu options. I'm pressing 0 on the remote, and it's loading XBMC, which we're not going to get into here. But again, something that was worthwhile to demonstrate, that the option to use a shortcut for anything on the system was, again, perfectly functional. Interestingly, when you exit from XBMC, it goes back to the MS Dash, but again, with that 4-button combination, we can boot into UnleashX without any issues. I believe that's a failsafe feature in the most recent version of Xbox Media Center, which is fine by me. Now, one last thing to note is if you press the Y button on the UnleashX Dash, you will get the Xbox system menu, or system info. So if you need to check on anything, you have that option quick, and the X button will bring up a list of most recently run applications. So if I wanted to play San Andreas, I could do it from here real quick. If I want to go to the MS dashboard, I can do that. And the same is for any application or game that you use. That really concludes this tour of UnleashX. I've tried to be as in-depth as I can to give a good explanation on all the features, but again, there isn't much to say about the application, but at the same time, there's quite a bit to talk about. All this is, though, is a means to an end. This acts as a centralized way, as any dash would, a centralized way to interface with the software that's on your Xbox, so that you have the way you prefer to go and play classics like Crimson Skies, the DDR Ultramix series, Dead or Alive, any game you'd want to. And right now, do I feel like some Halo? I don't feel like some Halo, but I've got Halo if I want it. I might get back to San Andreas after this, which in fact, I think I'm going to do that. So, this has been Chris, giving you a tour as best I can of UnleashX. Hope everyone enjoyed the video. Have a great day, night, whatever it is. Later.